hear me?
Yes. Morning.
Great. Right, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, the 28th of November, almost December, which is quite terrifying. Welcome to the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters. Today we are here to deal with the budget issues. So I really want to welcome the Premier. Thank you very much for being here. The Head of Department, Dr. Malila, the committee members, who I will shortly ask everyone to introduce themselves, and then members of the public, if there are any. Just want to find out from the procedural officer, and at this point, we have any members of the public here?
No, Chairperson.
Not, okay. Right, everyone, before we kick off, because this is a virtual meeting, I'm going to ask everyone to please introduce themselves. Let's start with the Premier and the committee members, and then we can move on to the department. Premier?
Thank you very much, Chair. Alan Windy, Premier.
Thomas Walters, a member of the committee.
Thank you very much, Chair. Khalid Sayed, member of the committee.
Good morning, Chairperson, honourable members, Premier. I'm Wendy Kaiser-Philander, committee member.
Good morning, Brett Heron, member of the committee.
I think Janita, if you're there, if you can, Mr. Honourable Stevens.
Good morning, Chair. Donita Stevens, and I'm a member of this committee.
Correct. Are there any other members of the committee here this morning? Okay, let's move on to, so I'm Benedict van Minnen. I am the chair of this committee. And then if we can move on to the department, Dr. Malila, you and your people.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to the members of the committee. Harry Malila, I'm the accounting officer and the teacher in the province.
Good morning, members. Good morning, committee. I'm Driekus Basson. I'm the CFO.
Morning, members. I'm Ihsan Samai. I'm the Acting Deputy Director General.
Ihsan, you will probably just have to up your voice a bit. I mean, I couldn't even hear you.
Thanks, DG. I'm the Acting DDG for the Centre for E-Innovation, Ihsan Samai. Thanks.
Good morning, Chairperson and members. Henriette Robson, DDG Corporate Assurance.
Morning, members. Nico Bosso, Legal Services.
Morning all. Nadia Kara, Financial Management.
Nadia, you will probably also have to up your voice a bit when you speak. I could hardly hear you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Johan Nel. I'm the Chief Director, Organisation Development.
Good. Can I go? Good morning, members. Zinat Ismail. I'm Program Manager for Provincial Strategic Management, Program 2. Thank you.
Letitia?
Good morning, members. Morning, I'm Letitia Isaacs, Acting Chief Director, OD.
And then Regan and Renee?
Good morning, members. I'm Renee Trout. I'm Financial Management.
Morning, members. Regan Thorpe, Media Liaison to the Premier.
Wonderful. And then Nozipo is the last person, Chairperson. Then I think we can continue.
Morning, members. Nozipo Maolwana from the DG's office.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, right. So this is a virtual meeting. So I'm going to ask people to keep their microphones off unless they're speaking. And the same can actually go for camera. Otherwise, we're going to end up with an issue with connectivity being a challenge. Points of order, if you could please flag them in the chat function. And I think that's really where we are. I just want to ask the procedural officer if we've received any apologies.
No, Chairperson.
Okay, great. Then we're good to go. So I'm going to ask the Premier to please give introductory remarks. After that, I'm then going to ask the DG And then we can have general questions based on the introductory remarks. Premier, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and to all the honourable members. Good morning. Obviously, this is the adjustment appropriation. And I suppose in the context, not repeating what our Minister of Finance has said, both nationally and provincially, obviously our country still with a very low growth rate, increasing from 0.2 to 0.4%, but still not even 0.5% in GDP growth rate. Financially, still very difficult environment in which we find ourselves. As a province, also looking at how the adjustments play out in our province. Of course, I think this whole year having to be pretty frugal and managed. And so at the outset, I want to say to the DG, to the CFO, and to all of the managers, and you'll see in especially some of the savings that we've managed to put in place, you can see that obviously quite a lot of management trying to make sure that we're not overspending and that we are really looking for other sources of income at the same time. Of course, a small adjustment upwards of 95.010 million, which takes us now to from 2.008 billion to 2.103 billion. I think primarily the energy projects and looking at some of the realignments there. I think bearing in mind that we've got a reprieve at the moment because we haven't had load shedding for a while, but we're still very in a very precarious position in South Africa. So we've got to make sure that the energy plan continues to push through. If you look at the predictions for Eskom going into next year, you start to see from the middle of the year again red in their predictions back to a load shedding scenario. So we've got to try and mitigate that as much as possible. But of course, we also know that we're reliant on a very old coal power fleet as our predominant power source. So we will continue to push through with our energy plan. But the realignment of the energy funding, that's a 3.78 million rand realignment. I think, first of all, a 10 million rand saving on the load shedding packs. And if you remember, it took a while with the procurement processes because people didn't have that kind of volume, 91,000 packs handed out. But I also think that the procurement team in managing it, we managed to save 10 million on our projection of initial costs, of course, which goes back to the revenue fund. There's another 6 million saving that comes through the demand side management program because, and this is for water, for hot water control or ripple control measures that goes or was rolled out in 3 municipalities, and we got USAID to help us there. So that's another 6 million rand in saving. You'll see on the integrated resource plan, that's another 11 million rand in saving. Again, getting the USAID program to help us there, and they've agreed to fund that. So that's another saving. So we return that to the revenue fund. 1 million rand budget for the independent power producers auction that was paid back to the provincial revenue fund because we managed to get the World Bank to support us there. And then again, also not filling of some posts. We had some provision for scarce skills posts, didn't fill those. And so that's another 9 million that went back to the revenue fund. And so I must also just say to the team, it's you've got to manage, to not overspend and also try and find alternative funding. And I think in this case, you can see we've found quite a lot of alternative funding. Then, of course, at adjustment time, there's shifts between votes. That's 34.8 million rand through budgetary shifts. There again, the Microsoft licensing that always seems to come up every year. That's mainly driven by inflation rate or exchange rates. You'll see also maybe the ICT guys will talk a little bit later, or the DG, on some of the programs that we're busy with Microsoft themselves to try and mitigate this risk, and to also get a better funding and a better costing system with them, because of course we do spend a lot of money with Microsoft. You'll also see some ICT services in education, and the Microsoft Azure cloud computing and technical services for the health and transversal electronic content management systems. You'll also see some money, 2.3 million rand, shifted to the Department of Infrastructure for the PTI, or the Provincial Training Institute, as well as local government for forensic investigative support. Then, of course, there's some rollover funding, 9.3 million rolled over. This is again shortfall within the Centre for E-Innovation. Also, again, the Microsoft licensing pressures, and 9 million rand for cyber security, and 2 million for the public Wi-Fi services to residents. Provincial funding, 77.5 million allocated by the Treasury to deal with the growth and inflationary pressures. Again, Microsoft licensing. And then you would have also seen in the broadband to broadband 2.0 public Wi-Fi, you'll see some 29 million rand moved around there. You will also see that the contract releases an additional saving of 46 million rand over the 2 years. This is the new contract. Then non-adjusting, which is compensation for employees. Again, in here, we've also had to continue with the absorption of the wage agreement. That's 26 million rand. That's been absorbed. If you remember, obviously the pressures on the two big departments, but within our other departments, we've had to make sure that we absorb that COE pressure. And then, as we said in the standing committee last, in the discussion around the Children's Commission, no, I mean, this is ongoing. 4.3 million remains in the Provincial Revenue Fund. This is about staff capacitation, as well as trying to get to that permanent accommodation or office accommodation for the Children's Commissioner. I think in general, that's a high-level summary of some of the changes. But again, I just want to say through you, Chair, to the DG and CFO, and to the whole management team, thank you very much. You know, it's trying to balance the books, and this time when we've got inflationary pressures, and then of course other pressures, it means a lot of management, and you can see that management's paying off. So thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Premier. And I must say it's certainly a challenge to try to balance this, and I think that it's a very good exercise in really good guidance that one has actually managed to do this. Dr. Malila, if you could please give us some opening remarks.
Chair, thank you very much. And again, good morning to the members. Thank you, Premier, for going through, you know, all the adjustments in our department. I mean, from our side, Chair, I need to echo. I mean, we are continuously looking for some savings and innovative ways to deal with the issues in this department. Premier spoke about the realignment of the energy projects, and if one look at that adjustment of 37 million, close to 26 million of that is pure savings, because obviously we were either funded from external sources, or we were able to do stuff in the department much more efficient. Just on the issue of Microsoft, Chair, we have started to engage Microsoft, you know, with regards to the licensing cost between myself and the CFO, and there are moves afoot now to meet with the national representative of Microsoft, because obviously these licenses are denoted in dollar terms, and we're looking at different ways and different type of licenses to procure in the system. And we see that also as more efficient ways of doing our business, because obviously the resources are on the scarce side. Then just lastly, Chair, on the broadband stuff, I mean, as Premier has indicated, we have now awarded the broadband 2.0 contract because the broadband 1.0 10 arrangement that has come to an end. And what we are seeing as part of broadband 2.0 is a cheaper approach. That's obviously for the benefit of the citizens, but we're also rolling out 355 more sites. And in fact, broadband 2.0 excludes, public Wi-Fi, but we're using, some of the savings to deal with public Wi-Fi more broadly. And I think Premier have indicated we've already got more than 4 million devices connected, to our public Wi-Fi, and that means that's a direct benefit. It's a direct service that we're providing to keep our residents connected. And we've got reports on what people are looking at, and there's a lot of people, that are also looking for obviously opportunities within the employment space. But again, Chair, I mean, in closing from our side, I mean, this is a department that works very, very hard on, making sure that obviously that we keep things together because we have a transversal role. And year after year, we are upping our game to make sure, that this government delivers on its main objective, and also making sure that obviously we deliver on the key priorities. So, Chair, that's opening comments from our side. I think we are ready, to respond to any comments and questions, and also, going through the budget statement 2 documentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will, of course, be going through the budget statement documentation, but at this point, if I'm going to open up to the committee for general questions on those introductory remarks. Has anyone got any questions there? Okay, I've got one from Member Heron, Member Sahed. Member Heron, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the Premier and the DG for the introductory remarks. I just have 2 questions. I mean, there's not a lot in the adjustment appropriation, but the Microsoft shortfall, which I think the Premier said comes up often, I was just wondering whether we have explored or whether we do indeed take forward cover to preempt the fluctuation in the rand dollar exchange rate. And then with regards to the 9 million surrendered from the failure to fill posts, what is the core? Because the core, I see it's in a capital letter, core energy team. What is that core energy team, and what does it mean by not filling those posts? Thanks.
If I may, can I just ask then for the other 2 questions as well for Member Sayed and for Member Walters, and then we can just deal with those 3 in one tranche. Member Sayed?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just let me also welcome the input by the Premier. As Member Erin has said, there's not a lot in terms of the adjustment, but just the Premier spoke about the Children's Commission and the reserve, the funding, the reserve for that. Given that it is linked to resources and to budget, could you possibly just get an update as to where we are at now? I know some of us, we've been contacted by the Premier's office to for discussions and for questions and for interviews, which we will be doing. I just wanted to get a sense, where are we now with regards to the capacitation of the Children's Commissioner's office? Then I think I'll get into my other questions, as we go through it in terms of page by page. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Member Walters?
Thank you, Chair. Member Said, you touched on the matter that I wanted to raise as well. Perhaps just to add to what he asked, how does the Premier envisage the Children's Commissioner and the capacitation of the Children's Commission operating going forward? Thanks.
Thanks very much. Okay, right. If we could maybe just address those queries.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll come in first. First of all, to the Honourable Heron, thank you very much. We don't take forward cover, but maybe DG or someone in the team can talk about the discussions with Microsoft going forward on, getting ourselves a better deal. As a whole of government, we spend a hang of a lot of money with them. And so there is already a discussion to say we need to have a better plan. And obviously the exchange rate can go the other way as well. But we are looking for a better plan with them. I know that there's also been a lot stricter management of the system, of making sure that we don't have any wasted licenses, etc. But the team can talk about that. Then on the energy team, obviously when we set this up, we had to put a budget aside, and we wanted to get some core skills in. Obviously, the lead internally in the energy space is Mr. Alvin Lester, and some of the team have been pulled in from various departments as we pull this together. But we also put some budget aside for other specialists, because the energy space is quite diverse, from solar to wind to battery to green hydrogen and so it is needing various specialist people. But maybe DG can also just add one or two extra points to that. We just haven't, in whether it's in the energy team or even in some of the other posts in the department, we haven't just gone ahead and filled them when a retirement has taken place, or in this case, saying, what are we going to need energy going forward? Let's make some money available for the team, and then not finding that exact same person, or, as you've seen, finding other money from other places, because we also have had to try and manage it quite frugally. To the Honourable Said, as well as the Honourable Walters, first of all, the office space. When the Children's Commissioner was first put in place and we spoke, we housed her within our own office space. And of course, it's an interesting dynamic, because she doesn't fall directly, under the Department of the Premier. Of course, we support it. She actually reports to Parliament. And maybe this is also part of the review that both she and we have asked for, to actually now have a look at it, because it's been in place for a while. How does that structure work, and how does it report, etc., and get supported? And of course, that, I think, review will come out. But in the discussion with her, then she wanted to, and she'd identified, I think it's called Seafarer's House. You'll know it if you come in via Philip Hosanna. It is a provincially owned building. And then that was being looked at as one of the possibilities. And so that delayed when that didn't take place, because then she said, no, I didn't want that. She was then looking for a different property. So there has been a number of identifications of properties and not getting to a final property, as far as I know. But maybe the DG can also then just update us on that. I think also the review that's going to take place will also give us an opportunity to engage, both from a political point of view, from a standing committee point of view, but also obviously have an outside view on what should we change? Do we need some adjustment in the legislation? What else needs to happen around the Children's Commissioner? Of course, it's it's only been there for a few years now, so it's busy finding its feet. Chair, if I can hand over to the DG, and then he can probably just add one or two pieces of detail, or even to the ICT team on Microsoft.
Premier, thank you very much for that. And also thanks to the members for the questions. Let me just deal with the issue of the Children's Commissioner. We've actually asked for an independent review or evaluation, given that this is the first term of the Children's Commissioner, and we basically split it into two. The one deals with the Office of the Children's Commissioner, and that the Office of the Children's Commissioner consists of staff, obviously employed by Western Cape government, and then also, let's call it the Children's Commissioner herself as a functionary, or as a person that's appointed by law. So we've actually asked the independent reviewers to appraise us basically on the functioning and effectiveness of the Children's Commissioner Office from inception to date. And in fact, the initial people that were part of the interviews included mostly External role players, obviously, key people in Western Cape government that the Children Commissioner work with, like in education and social development, as well as myself. And then after we had all these interviews, given also the role that Parliament plays, because obviously, Parliament takes responsibility for appointment of the Children's Commissioner, plus Parliament also takes responsibility, for making sure that the Children Commissioner is accountable to Parliament. We've actually extended the evaluation to include members of Parliament. So effectively, when the team goes and they will speak to members of this committee and also to the broader Parliament, they will ask specific questions as it relates to obviously the functioning and the effectiveness of the Children's Commissioner, and we've actually initiated that particular process. I must also say, Chair, it is a process that I think that we need to deal with quite carefully, because in the office, the staff and the accountability as it relates to budgets, sits with me as the accounting officer, but I've got no other control mechanisms in relation to the Children's Commissioner herself, because obviously she's an appointment through the legislative process, and the appointment process at the moment sits in the legislature. I mean, we don't necessarily get involved in that as a department. Chair, the issue, maybe just the last issue on the Children's Commissioner, you will see that no funds of the Children's Commissioner has ever been redirected into the main department, if I can use those words. So all savings from the Children's Commissioner office have either been surrendered to the Revenue Fund, or we've asked the Treasury to keep it in reserve. The main issue that we've been dealing with is the issue of accommodation. Seafair House, as the Premier has indicated, has been identified. The Children's Commissioner went to go visit the building. She didn't find it appropriate for purposes. And then we've asked Public Works to look at an alternative building. They then identified a building and to which, complies to the requirements of the Children's Commissioner herself. She was very happy with the building, and we've really been struggling, to actually get an eviction order from the current tenants out of that building. So that process currently sits with Public Works. But Chair, the Children's Commissioner has got an office in St. George's Mall where she works from, and where obviously the staff also work from. So they're not sitting on the street or don't have accommodation. They do have, but we are trying to find more appropriate accommodation that would serve her purpose. And therefore, you will see, Chair, that the money that we are surrendering through this process, the 4.3 million, we're surrendering that back into the Provincial Revenue Fund for reallocation in future years to the Children's Commissioner. And it's two parts. The one part relates to staff, and that was also a question that was asked around capacitation. And then the other part relates to accommodation. I mean, Chair, we have the record. Firstly, there are two issues on the staff. It's very difficult to recruit the appropriate staff for the Children's Commissioner because it's a new institution. She's in her first 5 years of existence, and she also had some exits into that space. So we're trying to pull out all the stops to actually employ people in that space. And I mean, my team in the CSC is dealing, with the issue of capacitating the office. So we've also now sort of put a special team in place that will give dedicated attention to staff capacitation issues within the office of the Children's Commissioner. I hope that deals with, the questions from member side, and as well as also of member Walters. Coming to the question of member Heron in relation to forward cover, Premier is correct. We don't take forward cover. In fact, government don't take insurance because forward cover is a form of insurance. Because one can also understand if you take forward cover out and your rand dollar exchange goes positive, that means that the rand becomes stronger, then those expenditure would actually be regarded as fruitless. And effectively, you're paying more for something initially than what you would pay for. But what we do, we don't not just take forward cover. What we do is we pull in the banks. We look at what's happening in the financial markets. We do our own analysis, our own processes, and then we basically look at when is the best time to pay for these licenses. And we don't just do it on our own. We obviously also do it in concert with the Treasury. So we kind of do our own analysis internally, and as I said, supported by the banks to actually determine what the appropriate time to pay it, and then we actually, deal with it. But I'm also going to ask Driekus maybe just to say a little bit more on it. On the core energy team, Premier is correct. I mean, the medium-term budget policy statement on page 76 sets out our entire approach to our energy projects. Key in that is obviously to get the appropriate people in place to deal with the energy issues and people that understand the environment. They're not easy to find, and particularly when we were in the period of heavy load shedding, those resources were just very, very difficult to find. Notwithstanding that, we have put money aside, and to fill these resources, we've also been able to fill it with some shifting of people inside the system that's been working on, some of these key projects. So the money that we are shifting, or the money that we're going to utilize for staff, is obviously moving forward in relation to our energy plan. And I mean, the energy table, as Minister Bartman said, is set out on page 99. And obviously, this department plays a coordinating role with the energy advisor sitting, in this department and pulling all of this together. But it's a whole of government approach, and you may find even similar issues in some of the other departments. Just moving to the Microsoft licenses, in addition to my points that I've made earlier in terms of the negotiations, I mean, I'm going to ask Driekus maybe also to say a little bit more on this, and maybe Sean, if you can maybe also say a bit more on it, particularly in relation to our strategy of looking at our different types of licenses. So internally, Chair, we've actually provided a upper limit for departments, and we're also looking at mechanisms to at least recoup some of the funding that we're spending on these licenses, particularly where departments exceed, the upper limit in terms of the new staff that they are appointing in the system. Because obviously you can understand that this vote can't carry the risk, for appointments or for licenses as it relates to appointments that's taking place in other departments. But it's not only about, the license. We also need to look at the efficiency of those licenses, because it's not helpful if you buy a full Microsoft licensing suite and maybe the user or users of that machine maybe only use Excel or only use PowerPoint, because then the other stuff actually goes for away. So we are carefully looking at this whole issue given the number that we are spending. So Driekus, if you can maybe just touch on those 2 points, and I mean, if required, Ishan can also come in, maybe just talk about what are we doing in the Microsoft space and how do we actually, look at some of the stuff. And if you want to add anything particularly as it relates to the Children's Commissioner accommodation stuff, you're welcome to do that. Driekus and then Ishan.
Yeah, thank you, DG. Just honorable members on the Microsoft, the forward cover, obviously the Microsoft agreement is a framework agreement. So it is determined between National Treasury and CETA for the entire country. So if any forward cover is to be taken out, it would be with them. I have consulted them a number of years ago, and they indicated the maximum forward cover they would want to take is 6 months, for the reasons that DG also gave. And in fact, 6 months is not going to assist us at all. So we've asked Microsoft for a 90-day period to pay their invoice. And as DG said, in that 90 days, we see what is the best time to pay and to get the best rate. So that's on the Microsoft licenses. In terms of the future, to try and reduce cost, we are looking at a license that they call an F3. Currently, we're on the E3, E5 dispensation. It's a license with proper security and so on. And it has certain mailbox sizes. The F3, F5 still gives you security, but it reduces the mailboxes significantly. There are, for example, nurses or matrons in hospitals who only uses their PC mostly for email, so they can go on to the cheaper license. We've done some pilots, and we are negotiating with Microsoft to then have a much more affordable dispensation going forward. Then the question on the Children's Commissioner, just to note that the accommodation that the Commissioner is happy with, as DG mentioned, we actually identified that building long ago. In fact, it was in 2021 already, but the tenant refused to leave, and the sheriff of the court only had success in May 2024, which is a few months ago. The commissioner is happy for things to proceed, but obviously infrastructure department has to now do rezoning applications. They have to look at refurbishment. There are some unique requirements by the commissioner. So the anticipation is that it will take a little bit more time, but at least there is now progress in that regard. And then as for the commissioner staffing, there is a submission being prepared for the next 3 years to look at PT resourcing a bit further so that she has even more capacity than is there at the moment. Thanks. Then on the, I think the last matter was, there was a third matter, DG, it's just slipped me. I think it's the core energy.
Yeah, the core energy.
On the core energy, some posts are short term. And some people want longevity in posts, so they're not quite able to join us on those terms. Or what also happens is the deputy director level salary is simply not enough for a professional in some of these spaces that Premier mentioned. So those are some of the impediments that we faced in trying to resource that. Thank you.
Driekus, thank you very much. Ihsan, is there anything that you wanted to add, or did Driekus cover you?
No, I think DG Driekus pretty much covered it. Maybe just to add, besides looking at moving users from enterprise to frontline licenses, primarily in the Department of Health, and if we can get 50% of their users moved, it will be a significant saving because they're by far our biggest user base in the province, around 60%. And then also, DG and members, just to note that we are negotiating with Microsoft to look at if we can get an even better deal. So that we can reduce those costs further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think that's the responses to the questions.
Great, thank you very much. I think we almost lost signal there at the end. So I hope everyone is in a situation where you're getting strong signal. We certainly should be. Thank you very much for very comprehensive answers. I just want to find out, because we do need to move forward. We still have quite a bit to get through. If there are any follow-ups that we have to ask now, or we can stand over to the substantive part of the meeting. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so I am going to move on to the deliberation of vote 1. So hopefully everybody has got the documentation in front of them. Are we able to pop it on the screen at all? If I just ask the procedural officer about that. Okay, let's.
Yeah. Driekus, do you have our budget statement 2 in electronic form that you can maybe show it? If,
yes.
Oh,
there we go. There it is. Right. Okay. So as we kick off, I'm not going to do it exactly page by page because that would potentially take us all morning. I am going to group it into essentially convenient bite-sized chunks, as it were, things that hang together. And if we could maybe just screen it online, it would also just make it easier. So if you open your blue books, you'll see the first 18 pages are in Roman numerals. We aren't going to deal with that. We're going to move on to, there we go, the ordinary numerals, which start at page 1, which is actually, if you count, I think about page 19. So there we have page 1. And I think let's just run this through to page 5. So page 1, page 2, then on to page 3. I am going to also assume that everybody has read and digested this. And I think, as Kamash Ahmad, we can just do pages 4 and 5, and then we can take questions on the first 5 pages. There we go, to there. Okay, right. Do we have questions on these pages? I am looking for hands. I do see that I have one from Member Said. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, my first one on this is relating to the table, I think on page 2, table 1.1, on page 2. I've got a couple of questions there. I just wanted to get a sense as to what goods and services will the additional, there's an additional amount there of 85360. What will that be spent on? Then also, which department, agencies, and accounts benefit from the 66 main appropriation? Then, how many and which non-profit organizations will benefit from the 46824 main appropriation? I see there's a line there. Then also, what machinery and equipment will the additional appropriation of 9.560 be for? Those are my 4 questions on page 2. Then just trying to see if I've got page 2. Yeah, the one on, okay, now that I think goes to, okay, e-innovation. Are we covering page 4 and 5 as well, Chair?
Yes, please. I think we can do that in this tranche.
Okay, let's do that. Then I just wanted to get a sense with regards to page 4. I see there's an issue there around program number 5, local government, that there's been funds shifted to local government for legal governance and investigation support for provincial forensic services. I just wanted to get a sense there. Is this because there has been an increase in the kind of cases that need to be looked at, and do we have a record probably of that? And what involvement does the Department of the Premier play in that regard? Then page number 5, with regards to e-innovation, I think there's a line there around e-innovation, the Center for E-Innovation. I just wanted to get a sense as to how critical is the center is this particular center for e-innovation, and how does it tangibly contribute to service delivery on the ground? If you could just get a sense, and to the professionalization of the public sector, because we understand that the Premier and the Premier's department ought to lead in that particular regard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's get answers to that, please, DG, before we then move on to Member Heron's questions.
Chair, thank you very much, and also thank you to Member Syed. And I'm going to ask Driekus and our head for CI to actually augment some of the stuff. Let me maybe deal with the first issue on page 4 that deals with, funds, 2.5 million that's been shifted to the Department of Local Government. This relates, Chair, to an allocation that we received from the Provincial Treasury, because obviously legal services as well as forensic services sits in this department. And you will see that, when you go to our regional allocation, we've received money from Treasury to deal with legal, governance, and investigative support, particularly within the legal environment as well as provincial forensic services, but with the understanding that a portion of that should actually go to the Department of Local Government to strengthen forensic service capability in that department. Obviously, what we've done, we've also assisted them, particularly with the appointment of, some legal support, and also with the appointment of people, to assist within the forensic space. So it's actually just a shift from this department to that department. And I mean, if there are any detail on, let's call it, investigations within the local government space, I'm sure the committee can obtain that from the Department of Local Government. The issue of e-innovation, Chair, I would clearly indicate that is a key component in this government. In fact, E-innovation deals with a lot of things. So they deal with public Wi-Fi, and I said there's over 4 million people that is connected to that. We also deal with the broadband contractual commitments in government. And at the moment, we've got all our schools, all our hospitals, all our key buildings connected. And I mean, we've got connectivity to close to about 1,900 sites across Western Cape. It's not just in the metro, it's in every area, and we've got all the maps. We've already shared with the committee previously, but we can do that also if the committee wishes so. And now with broadband 2.0, we are going to add another 355 sites. The reality is without CI, this government will not be functional. It is impossible because obviously what we do is we also enable every staff member as it relates to connectivity, and our services extend beyond the staff members, into communities as it relates to broadband, as I've just indicated. It extends into schools, it extends into hospitals, and in fact, Chair, it also extends into our e-centers, which is also spread across this entire government. So if you look at the numbers and the people that attend, those e-centers, those services that's been delivered by CI is actually crucial to the functioning of not just government, but it's also crucial to building a capable state. And I mean, this department is the key department that takes responsibility for that. And obviously, we are using our Provincial Training Institute to do a lot of the initiatives to build a capable state. And therefore, Chair, you can even see in this adjustments estimate, we are also making key allocations to our Provincial Training Institute to make sure that we build the requisite capacity and capability, with our staff to make sure that we can deliver, on the services. Driekus will deal with the detail in terms of the NPOs, because a lot of that obviously relates to the main budget. But Chair, the major addition, particularly under goods and services, in terms of other adjustments, is because of the adjustments that goes to program 4, and we already spoke about that. That's a 77 million shortfall for dealing with the Microsoft licenses, and then for some other key matters in some of the other programs. So effectively, the 74,672 is a combination of what is set out on page 4 and also set out on page 5. So it deals with shifting of about 34 million. That's between the different votes, and Premier and I spoke about that. Obviously, primarily within the program 4 area of about 39 million. And then it deals with a shift to DLG, and then there's some internal financing that we are doing, and then also some internal financing, shifting money, from program 2 people management to deal, with some of the issues at the Cromeria Training Institute. The other two questions, Driekus, the 9 million rollovers for machinery and equipment, if you can maybe just deal with that, but I think that a lot of that is to deal, with sort of some of our ICT refresh matters, but you can give a little bit more detail on that. And then particularly the 46 million that actually goes to non-profit institutions in the main estimate. If you can maybe just touch on that, otherwise I'll just have to quickly pull my main budget. But in the meantime, if you can maybe just deal with those other 4 matters that Member Syed has raised. Because
Thanks, DG. Through your chair to Member Shahid. I think the first question was the 66 in the main appropriations for departmental agencies and accounts. That is simply the SABC TV licenses for all the television sets within the department, which we pay once a year. The 46.8 million under non-profit is essentially for 2 of our partnerships that we have. The one is with Library Business Corners. It's worth about 31 million of that number. And it supports 80 of our Cape e-centers across, especially in rural areas, where we have a ICT service for the communities. And then the balance of around 14 million is for the EDP, the Economic Development Partnership, which we've taken on from DDAT as of this year. And that's for the institutional funding. Then there was something about the 9.650 million on machinery and equipment. So 9 million of that is simply to refresh our UPSs, to strengthen our infrastructure positioning in CEI. And the 650,000 is where a department, one of our programs, Program 5, are doing some ICT refresh of laptops, and they are internally funding that. So it's just a shift on that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Driekus. Chair, I think that takes care of the questions on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 from member on side.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Member Heron. Before I come, I'll circle back then just to ask for follow-ups. Member Heron?
Thanks, Chair. I have questions also on page 3, 4, and 5, mostly regarding Program 4, the e-innovation Centre for E-Innovation, and maybe just to pick up on Member Syed's question around how necessary the Centre for E-Innovation is. I think my question was similar, but maybe to ask what role the E-Innovation Centre plays in the other departments in terms of them delivering on their functions. Then my specific question around the funding, there's about 36 million that is shifted from votes 5, which is education, vote 6, and vote 13. 6 is health and wellness, and vote 13 is cultural affairs and sport, and that's described on page 4. And it's one is for ICT services, the other is for Microsoft Azure Cloud, and the other is electronic content management. So maybe that ties into my first question about how this department or this centre functions to improve the services of the other departments. Then I just have a question with regards to, in the Minister of Finance's medium-term budget policy statement, she mentioned that there was an implementation of artificial intelligence through strategic programs aligning with the growth for jobs priority. This I'm just quoting her, including an AI-driven predictive analytics platform. Where is that? Is that funded within the current budget, or is that part of the adjustments? Thank you.
We can just get the responses to that, and then I can come back for follow-up, so I'm not seeing other hands. Thanks.
Chair, I'm going to ask Ihsan maybe to also add to this. I mean, I always compare Program 4 innovation to a road and a car. So we're responsible for the governance of the Centre for Innovation in Western Cape Government. So we provide the road and we provide the platform, and everyone that rides on this road must actually comply to the terms and conditions that's set by us. So we provide the core corporate services, core CI services to the entire Western Cape Government as a suite. But then there are additional stuff that departments sometimes require, some specific information, and that's particularly where the shifts come in. So the question that member Aaron asked around the 36 million, and I think Premier responded to that initially. It's the Microsoft licensing, 2.2 million, software systems for safety project, 1.1 million, ICT services specifically for education, 4 million. Then there's the Azure cloud computing in health and wellness, 21 million. And then also an ECM, it's 10.4 million. So this relates to particular things that relates to those departments that falls outside of the normal service that we need to give as a corporate institute. And also we've got the capacity, we've got the capability, we sometimes even have standardized contracts and stuff in place. So it's much easier for these departments to call on us, but it's also important because we provide the governance environment for CI, and we will make the call whether these vehicles or these programs can actually be part of our corporate environment. So Ihsan, I don't know if you maybe just want to add to that. And then on the issue around implementation of artificial intelligence, I mean, this is basically my understanding, and I mean, I haven't pulled the specific thing in terms of what the minister said, but it comes from the medium-term budget policy statement. So these are all part of the future. It's part of what we want to do over the next 3 years. I know in Minister Bartman's department specifically, they're looking at futures modeling that actually links to the financial stuff. What we're going to look into as it relates to artificial intelligence is obviously, how we can use artificial intelligence in some of the work that we are doing, particularly on the administrative side. Health is already, to an extent, utilizing some of these artificial intelligence tools like robotics, etc., as part of their different processes. And then we want to also start to pull it into some of our core services, like particularly, in corporate assurance, in legal services, and we're going to use, obviously, the Center for E-Innovation to drive some of the stuff. So utilizing AI is part of our efficiency drive, and also part of the work that we're doing from the center of government side, and it relates particularly to the issue around innovation, and it must also become part of the culture that we are driving, in this government. Sean, can you maybe say a little bit more around the role that we play? Because I mean, it also links to the question that member Syed have asked, so that there's this better understanding of what we do in CI, our biggest program in this department.
Thanks, DG, chairperson, members. So effectively, colleagues, CI provides all the IT services for the province, from IT governance, strategy and planning, the network infrastructure, the end user tool, your Microsoft Office and the rest, the cyber security to ensure that we've got the necessary level of IT security in place. And then all the application systems, or maybe not all, 95% plus, I would say. There are a few that are provided by third parties. And those are systems that are either transversal across the province or department specific, such as your online admissions or CMIS systems in the education environment, and your health information system and primary healthcare information system within the health environment. So essentially, colleagues, everything IT and IT support, including our IT service desk, is provided by the Center for E-Innovation. And that name has been, I think, since the early 2000s, when IT was renamed to the Center for E-Innovation. We are also, as the DG said, looking at AI, because the province is looking to us for guidance around it. So we are busy working even with the national, the department, the DCDT, CETA and other colleagues, looking at it from a national perspective and then also from a provincial perspective. We've already from our side initiated a pilot around the AI tools, and we've also provided for the rest of the province some insight into AI tools. The current one we're looking at is called Microsoft Copilot, and we've done a bit of work around that as well. And then specific around the funds that have been transferred to us. So we provide cloud services, both in the Microsoft Azure cloud as well as the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. And as DG said, we provide all the basic services, but the Department of Health specifically is on a digitization drive. So they've got some additional things that they want and are therefore paying for. And that's the money for the Azure Cloud Computing services, as well as the additional technical services they want. The Western Cape Education Department similarly has kicked off a few new initiatives around IT development, and they are funding those. And then finally, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport is responsible for the enterprise content management system, which includes the records and documents management for the province. It's known as My Content, and we provide the technical support. And again, this is additional support required by the department as well. Thanks.
Chair, so in conclusion, I think the point raised by Member Heron in relation to AI, it's all part of the work that we're doing on futures thinking and evidence-based decision-making. It's set out on page 95 of the MTBS. Obviously, we will be driving that whole process through Program 4, which Ikshan is heading up, and also Program 2, Strategic Management, and the Center for E-Innovation, and we're putting some governance tools in place. But it's also about preparing ourselves, for the future, and we want to make AI part of it. And it's a new proposal, and we want to see, how we can use it to become more efficient, as a government institution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are very comprehensive answers. I don't see any other hands. Are there any follow-ups? Okay, I've got a follow-up from Member Syed. Please go ahead.
Chair, just a follow-up, Chair. I'm not sure whether I missed it, but I didn't hear it. My question on the non-profit organizations that are supported and what services for, that was not necessarily responded to. Then, as a follow-up with regards to on the page number 5 with the provincial funding of 77,488,000 with the center, for Microsoft licensing that's tied to the IT one. I just wanted to know there, Chair. Let me just get to that. There, I just wanted to know if this amount is the shortfall. How much are we actually paying Microsoft for software licenses, and who are the licenses for? Just wanted to get a sense of that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Dr. Malila?
Chair, no, thank you very much. We will gladly respond to that. Driekus, if you can maybe just indicate the 46. I know you've said it's basically 2. It's the library business corners that provides the services in our e-centers, and then about 14 million or so for the EDP. But if you can maybe just give that detail again, and then maybe Ishan, if you can just indicate, who those licenses are. It's primarily, for the users. I think we've got something like 30,000 licenses. So it's all Western Cape government employees that are linked to our corporate network, and that's got a computer that they work from. That's basically those licenses. But Driekus, just to you quickly, and then also to Ishan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just on the non-profit institutions, as DG mentioned, 31 million of that number is for the library business corners. We have 80 e-centers in the province. I think some members would have already been on site visits, and that's where people can look for a job, they can polish their CV, they can surf the web. School children can do some after-school programs. It's normally attached to a library or next door, not always, or sometimes it's attached to a two-song center. We also have a mobile e-center that reaches the deep rural areas. So that 31 million speaks to that. And then the 14 million is the institutional funding for the economic development partnership. And as you know, all the stakeholder management and partnering efforts are done with them as a partner. So that takes care of the 46 million. And then I think Sean will talk to the licenses. Thanks.
Thanks, DG. So we've got about 28,500 licenses in the province, and that covers all the users. So your IT access to the network, Exchange, your email, your Microsoft Office, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc., Microsoft Teams. So all of those tools, as well as our management of it, which is the Active Directory, so that we can manage it from a central perspective, but also as an organization. So that is what the licenses are for. It covers quite a few things, including your storage, etc. The total amount we paid for those licenses this year was around 250 million. It includes some academic licenses that are used by the Western Cape Education Department, as well as some of other nursing college and other similar institutions as well. So in a nutshell, and our shortfall was quite significant. So any contributions was towards the shortfall that we had for the Microsoft licenses in this financial year. Thanks.
Chair, I think that takes care of those questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We are going to be under a bit of pressure time-wise because I know this meeting isn't scheduled for that long. Member Syed, is that a legacy hand or a follow-up on a follow-up?
I think it's a legacy. My apologies.
No props. Okay, right. I'm not seeing any other hands. Let's move on to pages 6, 7, and 8. Okay, there's 6, and then 7, and on to 8, which is expenditure trends. Okay, those 3. I just want to find out then, are there questions on those pages? That is 6, 7, and 8. Last chance, everybody. Going. Last opportunity. All right. Then the next 3 pages are pages 9, 10, and 11. Summary of receipts. That's the last page, page 11. Do we have questions there? Again, I'm not seeing any hands. All right, then after page 11, we have from pages 8 is the annexes, Annex A and B. I think we can do those together. That's page 18. It takes us to the end of vote 1. Do we have any queries or questions from the members on this section? I'm not seeing any. Anything else from the members up until page 18? And then I just want to check with the procedural officer. There are no members of the public present, are there?
No, Chairperson.
Okay, this brings us then to the end of this section. So if there's nothing from anyone, Premier, have you got anything you want to add at this point?
No, not really, Chair. Just to say thank you very much. Thank you very much to the honourable members for the questions. And thank you to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Premier. So yes, from our side, thank you very much to the Premier, to Dr. Malila, to the department officials and everybody involved with this. I think it is an excellent example of financial prudence in very difficult times. We really do appreciate it. So thank you very, very much indeed, and thank you for all the work. The committee will now consider the adoption of the report. Yes, so thank you very much. And also, I know there are no members of the public here, but if anybody is watching, thank you also for viewing this. So we will now continue on with the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Okay, right. Now the consideration and the adoption of the report. We need to discuss whether or not we support or do not support this vote. And yes, let's see who would like to kick off on this. I think that's right. I have got Member Walters, and then I have got Member Kaiser-Philander. Member Walters?
Chair, I propose that we support the vote.
Thank you very much. Member Kaiser-Philander?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Chairperson. I welcome the deliberations on vote 1 and wish to second the recommendation made by the Honourable Walters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Syed?
Chair, I wish to register a minority view of the African National Congress as the official opposition, that we do not support this particular vote. When the debate happens, we will also be speaking more as to why we do not support, but I can also submit reasons if that is required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can put that into the report as well. Is there anything else that anybody wants to add at this particular point? I see that Member van Wyk was also in support of accepting the report. Procedure Officer, is there anything else we need to do in terms of the procedures here?
Chairperson, I'll flag the report now and then the committee can just adopt the report.
Thank you very much. Oh, there we go. Report of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters on Vote 1. The Standing Committee reports it has concluded deliberations and it supports the vote. And there we have the noting of the African National Congress with his minority view. Do you need reasons at this particular point? Or can that be added subsequently, or can that come in the debate?
Chairperson, for the record, if the member can just express his view for, or his reasons for not supporting the vote, it will be good for the record.
Okay, great. Member Sayed, could you just run through those?
Yes, Chair, I have also submitted it to the procedural officer, but just to indicate that the role of the Premier's office, and I've listed it, is basically policy and strategic coordination. It's also to provide leadership. It's to ensure that there are relations between the various departments, M&E, and various other things. Now, in our view, the budget does not speak to these particular roles. Instead, it shows basically micromanagement and the centralization of departments. We're also concerned around the manner in which the issues around the Children Commission are approached as well. So that's our rationale, but we'll obviously be speaking more to that in the debate. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, right, so that is noted. So there we have the draft documentation. Can we then accept, as we have already previously discussed then, that the majority accepts these this documentation? Member Walters?
Chair, I propose adoption of the report.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder?
I will second, Chair.
Thank you, Member van Wyk. Thank you, everybody, for pulling together today and getting this all done. Then the bit that is left is the resolutions. Is there anything under requests, recommendations, or resolutions that anybody would like to bring? Okay, let's just go on to the meeting minutes of the 22nd, which is also now being screened.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see you there. Member Heron?
I think we've actually, well, I'm not sure. I feel like we have in the first meeting, the introductory meeting, and maybe even when we've dealt with the annual reports, asked for a full briefing on the Centre for E-Innovation, and it may already be a resolution that hasn't yet been implemented. But if not, can we get a detailed presentation on the Centre for E-Innovation?
Yes, certainly. I'm sure we can do that if we can just get that noted by the procedural officer. I also want to I want us as a committee to also do some oversight visits in that regard, because I think that's very important. Okay, anything else for anyone? No. And then procedural officer, do you want us to just go through these minutes that you flighted from the 22nd of November?
Chairperson, for consideration and adoption. Thank you.
Okay. Just quickly run through them on the screen. That's page 1. Okay. Consideration and adoption from people who were present. Okay, Member Stevens.
Adoption, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Heron.
I'm seconding, thanks.
Thank you very much. And I believe that that is it for today. If there are no further points, thank you very much, everybody. And I really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Indeed, thank
you very
you.
much.
And I think this is our final meeting of this committee for the year. So also, well, I'm sure I'll see everybody, but from this committee, have a happy festive season and summer break. Thank you, everybody.
Same to you, Chair. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.